sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Stopping myself out of 2 trades, losing $296. Let's get into the recap. This is going to be a 2-for-1 discount deal because, I mean, it's kind of like the same thing. One of them is pretty much like a carbon copy of the last trade recap. And the other one I figured like they're both similar kind of concepts or similar ideas. We're rolling into a weekend. Nothing's going on. They're just sitting there, not above levels I want them to be above. Don't want to take the overnight risk or the over weekend risk. Not worth it. So just take the L's and we'll move on to next week. So that's kind of the idea. The first one is MS. So we lost 45.60 on the 10K account, 114 on the 25K account. So kind of in the same ballpark of like pretty small losses here from the last trade. I re-entered MS after the last time I got in. On that re-entry was actually on Thursday the 30th. Based off of this candle, I felt pretty good about where that candle and how price looked, because we talked about how in the last recap on MS didn't like this upper wick and how it closed under the breakout point. And now we're about to go into the weekend closing under the breakout point. So it's kind of like it could work and it totally is possible. It might next week, whatever. I'm moving on from MS. I don't really give a shit. I'm just not gonna trade this thing anymore. Taking 2 small losses on it, nothing terrible, but also it's like, okay, we're done. It's just not gonna go. The other parts of this story, if you look at volume, it's like kind of clear that we just haven't, like, we've gotten the breakout or it tried to break out a couple of times, but that breakout occurred again on lower volume, like descending volume. And generally speaking, that's not what I want to see. Is it a deal breaker all the time? No, not all the time, but not what I want to see. So you pair that with not a strong close, and I don't like it. Now, at the same time, you could on Monday get incredible volume, and this thing could close like this, super strong, huge candle, and now all of a sudden, like, it's back in play, and it certainly could be, but we just haven't gotten that yet, so I'm going to leave it alone and move on to the next one. Didn't hit the total drawdown that I was looking. I would have stopped myself out on the trade, but also just I'm not fucking with that one anymore. So we're done. We're done with that. We're done with that guy. Next trade was on gold. So this trade was actually back in here. This is gold XAU USD. I wrote down here, ran out of time on Friday. Didn't like how we're closing out the week. Not going to take it into the weekend. It's not worth the risk. Bull flag on the 4-hour time frame. Funny story. This trade would have passed a 25K account that I've been sitting on for a while, that I just haven't passed because I don't trade gold, silver, and the metals, and I don't trade commodities and as much. I mostly trade stocks, so I haven't traded this account as much, but it was sitting like kind of close to the to passing, whatever, to like the funded phase or whatever, and we have taken this loss. Still right there within like 1 to 2 more trades. Potentially depends upon how the next trade goes of passing. We'll see. But yeah. So here's the 4-hour time frame. Looked great this morning. Was on a walk. Was like, oh yeah, well, look pretty good. Got in on the entry here on this 4-hour time frame. Broke out over the consolidation. Looked great. Liked what I was looking at. All-time high push on gold. Great. We're like, okay, this is a perfect setup. Exactly what I'm looking for. Awesome. Great. We get this candle. We get like just past halfway to my target. Looking back, I could have, if I was watching it, I wasn't that closely, I could have moved my stop loss to break even once we got there. But if we got a little higher, if we got over like, let's say 28.20, like a couple dollars more on gold, I probably would have done it if I had seen it in time. But this upper wick kind of happened pretty fast, and we kind of came back down. So I was like, well, I'm not going to move my stop loss to break even. If I did, I would have gotten stopped out for break even. I wouldn't have taken the loss. But at the same time, had this trade worked out, I could have missed out on the gain too. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, in the grand scheme, I don't think it's that big of a deal. But what I do think is a big deal is that we stopped out of this thing again before my ultimate stop hits. But here's the thing, it's 3:15 on a Friday afternoon, and I'm looking at myself saying, like, markets or gold's going to close up shop here in like the next 2 hours. Are we going to get TP to hit in 2 hours? Chances are very, very low. Are we going to get stop to hit? Possibly, but maybe not. Chances are kind of low either way. But let's say we closed right here. Even if we closed right here, even if I closed at break even on my entry, Would I want to hold this over the weekend? No, not worth the overnight risk, not worth the weekend risk, not even overnight. It's weekend risk. Had I had this gold trade, worked out great, would have hit TP, would have been done fine, but it didn't. Had it been a Thursday or a Wednesday or a Monday or Tuesday, whatever, I'd hold this. This is not, I let it go. Either stop loss or take profit. I'll leave it alone. I'm not touching this thing because there's only a 1 hour, break on gold. Like gold stops trading from like 5 to 6 p.m. I think Eastern time during the week. So it's like, okay, fine. Then it's back open at 6 p.m. Chance of a massive, 1 hour gap down low. And then we just roll into the next day, and then whatever happens, happens. So there's not much of kind of a gap, but you have a 2-day gap. So from Friday afternoon to Sunday night, you got this 2-day gap. It's like anything can happen. News could be any news, any country, some random shit happens. Is it worth it? No. Do I want to wake up and see gold down here? It totally could be. And then I take on all this extra risk. So on a trade that I plan to lose $200 on, now I lose $400, $500, $600 on it. Why would I do that to make $300? Is it worth my risk reward? No. So that's why I didn't do it. Or that's why I got out of the trade. That's kind of the thought process. So for this, I will make a recap video for the month of January coming soon. Stay tuned for that. But in a nutshell, what you'll see if I pop up the screen is not a lot of action here. So last month, I believe I was up like $800, $850, something like that, December. This month, I'm down essentially that, so I gave back last month's gains, but at the same time, 20% win rate. I mean, dude, not great. I'll talk more about that as I recap all these trades. I'll go back into them all, and I'll talk about, where I believe that stems from, like what I think is going on, but what I can give you kind of a summary based off what I suspect after not even looking at all these trades. We're just not getting like that follow through. You know what I mean? We're not like, we're not really getting that follow through, which has kind of been the story of, I feel like of last year a lot. There was a couple of months we got some good follow through, but most of the time we were not getting great follow through. There'll be months where you don't get great follow through and I have green months. There'll be months where I don't get great follow through and I have red months. You're going to go back and forth. So that's kind of the deal. I have a couple positions open. One of them is up a decent amount. One of them is down a little bit. So if you net those out, if I was to get out of those trades right now, this would be a lot less than this number. But I don't really care. I'm not trying to, mess around. I'm not trying just to close out trades because of the calendar. Fuck the calendar. Who gives a shit? It doesn't matter. It's just the trade's the trade. So I've gotten myself early last year. I did have that problem, not problem, but I was I was letting that kind of fuck with me. Like, oh, I'm getting close to passing a prop firm. I should take this off, or I should do that. No, dude, no. Just the trade's the trade. Leave it alone. Let it play out, and that's it. Because you don't need to fuck your stats up for what? What are you doing it for? So 20. So the good news though, 20% win rate with a 2.2 average win loss, pretty good. If I maintain that average win loss or at close to it, and increase the win rate, great. But if you go back to last month, for example, I think I had a 66% win rate. So again, small sample size. So I was up 846. This month we're down 890, whatever the fuck it was. Last month with a good risk reward, but we also had a small sample size. This month we had a bit of a bigger sample size, but still not a huge sample size. Because again, you're kind of taking a peek at couple 10 trades. It's possible that out of 10 trade, or in this case 20 trades, but because of the trade copier, 4 winners. It's you're gonna have months where you have 2 winners, 3 winners, 4. It's possible. That's a recap. So yeah. So taking the L's, did technically these trades, had it not been a weekend, would I be in these potentially? I'd still hold them, but it's a weekend, so I'm not gonna hold them, and it's not worth it. So just take the L's and move on. Recap done. TradeZella link down below. Save 10% with code TC10. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Stay tuned for the monthly recap.